I want you to imagine something, just for a second. Really, try to put yourself in this scene.
Okay.
It's a Tuesday, just a completely unremarkable Tuesday afternoon. You know, the kind of day where nothing interesting is supposed to happen.
The baseline of normal life.
Exactly. You're walking down the street, maybe you've got a coffee in your hand, maybe you're scrolling on your phone, worrying about a meeting, or I don't know what you're going to make for dinner.
Just the usual internal monologue. The hum of everyday life, as you said.
Right. And then you turn a corner, and that hum just stops. It shatters instantly.
Okay.
You look up, and there's a building, an apartment complex, maybe 3 or 4 stories high, and you see smoke.
Oh, wow.
And not just a little smoke. It's thick, black, acrid smoke. And it's just billowing out of the second floor windows. You can see flames, licking up the brickwork.
That's a visceral image.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that just stops you dead in your tracks. Your brain has to completely switch gears.
It does. It goes from what's for dinner to like full-on survival mode. You stop. Your heart starts hammering in your chest. You can smell it. The burning wood and plastic, that really sharp chemical smell.
Smell of disaster.
Yes. And then, over the sound of the traffic and the crackling of the fire itself, you hear it. You hear a sound that it freezes your blood.
A scream.
A child is screaming, and it's coming from inside that building.
And that changes the entire equation, doesn't it? It goes from a spectacle, something you're watching, to a crisis you are now a part of.
100%. Now, here's the context, and this is absolutely crucial for where we're going with this deep dive today.
Okay.
You're standing there on the sidewalk, you're healthy, you're strong, you're not injured. You look at the fire, and obviously it's dangerous, it's a fire, but you do this split-second mental math.
The risk assessment.
You think, I might be able to get in there. The front door's ajar, the stairs, they look clear for now. You think, I might actually be able to grab that kid and get out.
That's the moment of decision, isn't it? That single terrifying moment where the adrenaline is just coursing through you and you're weighing probability against, well, total catastrophe.
And these questions just start exploding in your mind. Should I go in? Is it safe? Will the whole thing collapse on me?
Real practical stuff.
But then right underneath that surface level panic, these darker, much heavier questions start to hit. Do I have to go in?
Ah, there it is. That's the terrifying one.
If I don't go in, if I just stand here on the sidewalk and wait for the professionals, for the fire department to arrive, am I a bad person?
Or just not a hero.
Am I a coward? Yeah. Or am I just normal?
That internal monologue right there. Yeah. That is the absolute core of the tension we're exploring today. It's this profound philosophical puzzle that I think a lot of us hope we never have to solve for real.
Absolutely. Because we all universally admire the people who do go in.
Oh, completely. The ones who jump into the freezing river to save a stranger, the people who run toward the sound of danger while everyone else is running away. We call them heroes.
We pin medals on them. We name schools after them. We make movies about their lives. We hold them up as, the absolute pinnacle of what a human being can be.
We do. But the mission of this deep dive is to get underneath that admiration and answer the question that's sitting right there. Is heroism a moral obligation?
Is it something we must do just to be considered a decent human being?
Or is it something else, something that goes beyond duty, something that's, admirable for sure, but ultimately optional?
That is such a heavy question, because if the answer is yes, you are obligated, then wow, a whole lot of us are walking around failing a massive moral test every single day.
Right. If the standard for being a good person is willing to run into a fire, then, the bar is set incredibly high. Most of us are in trouble.
It raises the stakes of just existing, doesn't it? It makes everyday life feel fraught.
It really does.
So, today we're diving into a really fascinating stack of research. The main source is called Beyond Duty, The Moral Boundaries of Heroism. And we're going to use it to try and map this out.
We're going to dissect the difference between duty and heroism, which it sounds simple on the surface, doesn't it?
Deceptively simple.
But it gets incredibly messy and very personal the deeper you go.
We are absolutely going to get into the shallow pond argument, which, fair warning, might make you rethink your entire moral code.
It's a powerful one.
And we'll talk about the trap of moral demandingness, which is basically what happens when the very act of trying to be a good person threatens to, ruin your life.
And importantly, we'll look at how this whole calculation changes if you're, say, a firefighter versus an accountant. Does putting on a uniform change the fundamental moral obligation?
A huge question. Okay, let's unpack this. To even begin to understand if we have to be heroes, I think we first have to agree on what duty even means.
Right. It's a word we throw around a lot.
Yeah, we talk about jury duty or your duty to your family or your duty to your country. But in this specific moral context, what are we actually talking about?
So in the context of our source material, duty, with a capital D, let's say, is the baseline. It's the moral floor.
The floor.
It represents our fundamental moral obligations. It's specifically what you must do to avoid doing wrong.
Okay, so it's not about being extra good. It's about not being bad.
Precisely. Duty is fundamentally about avoiding blame. If you fail to perform a duty, you are blameworthy. Society and, moral philosophy looks at you and says, you messed up. You are in the wrong here. You failed a basic test of social existence.
So if I do my duty, I'm not. I'm not getting a medal. I'm not a saint. I'm just a functional member of society who isn't a villain.
Exactly. You are staying out of the moral red zone. You aren't necessarily in the green. You haven't earned any bonus points, but you are not in the red.
So what are some examples the source gives? What's on this list of mandatory must-dos? What is the bare minimum for not being a bad person?
Well, it's mostly this stuff that holds civilization together. A lot of them are what we call negative duties, things you must not do.
Like?
The big one, don't deliberately harm innocent people.
Okay, that seems pretty manageable. Don't go around stabbing people is a rule I think I can follow.
One would hope so.
Okay.
It also includes things like keep serious promises. If you sign a contract or you give your word on something genuinely important, you are bound by duty to follow through.
And don't steal, I assume.
Of course. Don't steal. These are the sort of 10 Commandments type things, the foundational rules. Don't steal, don't kill, don't break your major oaths.
Right, but it's not all don'ts, is it?
No. And this is a key point. It also includes some positive duties. It's not just about inaction. The source is very specific on this. You have a duty to help someone in minor danger if it is easy and safe.
Okay, if it is easy and safe, let's unpack that a little bit. That seems like a very important qualifier.
It is. So imagine you're walking down the aisle at a grocery store. An elderly person in front of you drops their cane. It clatters on the floor and rolls right over to your feet.
Okay, I'm with you.
Now, to bend down and pick it up costs you almost nothing. It takes 3 seconds. There is zero risk to you. It is, by any definition, easy and safe.
Right.
In that scenario, you have a duty to pick it up. If you just look down at the cane, step over it, keep walking, you haven't committed a crime. The police won't arrest you,
Ugh.
but you have failed a moral duty. You are, in that moment, blameworthy.
Yeah, if I saw someone do that, I would judge them hard. I think, what is wrong with you as a person?
Exactly. And that feeling of judgment, that's the signal. That's our social alarm bell telling us that a duty has been violated.
Okay, so that's the floor. That's our baseline. Don't hurt people, clip your promises, help out when it costs you basically nothing. So now, let's look at the ceiling. How does the source define heroism?
Heroism is defined almost in direct opposition to that. It's doing something morally good that involves significant risk, sacrifice, or cost.
Significant. That's the key word.
That's the entire key word. It's the above and beyond factor. It's an action that exceeds what most people would do, and crucially, it exceeds what is usually expected of a person.
So this is where we get right back to that burning building.
Textbook example. Running into that building means you're risking your life, your most valuable possession, to save someone you don't even know. That is a significant risk.
What are some other examples?
Well, think about a journalist or an aid worker who stays behind in a war zone to document atrocities or help civilians when they could have easily evacuated to safety.
Right. Or the source brings up donating a kidney to a stranger. I find that one really interesting.
Why is that?
Because it's not a split-second adrenaline-fueled decision like running into a fire. It's a calculated, slow, deliberate decision to undergo surgery and accept a permanent physical cost.
It is. It's a huge sacrifice. You are literally giving away a part of your body for someone else's well-being.
And if I decide not to give a stranger my kidney, nobody calls the police. Nobody even thinks twice about it.
Right. Nobody thinks you're a monster for wanting to keep both of your kidneys.
The source also mentions whistleblowing. That's a kind of heroism where you might not be dodging bullets, but you are absolutely risking your entire livelihood.
You might lose your career, your pension, your reputation, your friends might abandon you, you could be sued into bankruptcy. The cost is enormous. So it fits the definition perfectly. Significant risk and sacrifice for a moral good.
Which brings us to what the source calls the asymmetry of praise and blame. I found this concept really, really fascinating.
It's absolutely central to understanding this whole debate. It's the key that unlocks it, in a way.
So break it down for us. Asymmetry, it means it's not balanced, right? The scales aren't even.
Exactly. Think about how we as a society react to these two categories we just defined, duty and heroism. We praise heroes heavily.
Oh, yeah. We build statues, we write songs, we treat them as if they're almost superhuman.
We do,
Yeah,
but we don't put people in jail for not being heroes.
right.
We generally do not condemn people for failing to be heroic. If you're the person standing outside that burning building, frozen in terror, waiting for the fire department, nobody points a finger and says you are an evil person.
They might say, wow, that must have been so scary, or I completely understand why you didn't go in. There's empathy there, not condemnation.
So there's a gap, a moral gap. If I steal your wallet, I am judged as being bad. If I save your life by risking my own, I am praised as being a hero. But in the huge space in between, there's this neutral zone of just being a normal person.
And the central puzzle we're trying to solve today is, are there specific situations where that neutral zone just vanishes?
Exactly. Are there times when refusing to be a hero actually crosses the line and becomes a moral wrong? Or is that line between duty and heroism a solid, immovable wall?
This gets us into some really crunchy philosophical territory. The source introduces a term that I absolutely love, mostly because it just makes me sound smart when I say it. Supererogatory.
It's a great word. It sounds very academic, very intimidating, but the concept itself is actually quite intuitive once you get the hang of it.
Okay, so break it down. What does supererogatory actually mean?
It comes from Latin roots. Super, meaning above or beyond, and erogar, which means to pay out or to expend. So, in moral philosophy, a supererogatory act is an act that is literally beyond the call of duty.
It's extra credit.
It's the ultimate extra credit. It's saintly, it's noble, but by its very definition, it is not morally obligatory.
If something is supererogatory, it's like you get an A+ if you do it, but you don't fail the class if you don't. You still pass with a C just by doing your homework.
That is a perfect analogy. You pass the class of being a decent human by doing your duty. You get the honors distinction. You graduate summa cum laude by doing the supererogatory.
And there's a really strong intuition, which the source explores in depth, that heroism falls squarely into this category. The research lays out two main arguments for why we can't and shouldn't demand heroism from people.
These arguments are really important because they sort of protect us from a version of morality that becomes impossibly demanding.
So let's hit the first one. What's the first big argument for heroism being optional?
The first argument is simply that we can't demand the extraordinary.
Which, just on its face, that feels fair. I mean, we're all just people at the end of the day.
Well, think about what these heroic acts actually require of someone. They involve a significant risk to your life or your long-term health. They might involve a massive sacrifice of money like giving away your entire life savings to charity.
Or extreme emotional costs, like caring for a severely ill relative for decades.
Right. It's asking for everything a person has. And the logic of the argument is this. To say someone is obliged to be a hero is the same as saying if you don't risk your life or if you don't ruin your career for the greater good, you are morally failing.
Which just feels harsh. It feels wrong.
It feels incredibly harsh. It seems inconsistent with how we generally view human nature. We usually think that self-preservation is a valid, even a good instinct. We are biologically wired to want to survive.
Of course.
So a moral system that punishes you for trying to survive seems, well, broken. Morality generally dictates that choosing not to do these extreme things makes you an ordinary person, not a bad person.
It's the difference between being a bystander and being a villain. If we say you must be a hero, then every single bystander automatically becomes a villain.
And that just seems to cheapen the meaning of what a villain actually is. It makes us all monsters.
Okay, so that's a strong argument. What's the second one?
The second argument is a bit more subtle. It's about the value of what the source calls the free gift. This explores the very deep connection between praise and optionality.
The free gift. I like that image. What does it mean?
Think about it this way. If heroism were required, if it were mandatory, a duty, then when someone does a heroic act, they're just doing what they should have done all along.
Right. It's like paying your taxes. You don't get a trophy or a parade for paying your taxes. You just avoid going to jail. It's the expected baseline.
Precisely. If I owe you $100 and I finally pay you back, I haven't done anything noble or special. I've just balanced the ledger. I paid my debt.
You don't get to feel proud of yourself for not stealing from me.
Right. And if saving a life at great personal risk was considered a duty, then the hero was just paying a moral debt to society.
That really takes the shine off the medal, doesn't it? Congratulations on your Medal of Honor. You did the bare minimum required to not be a terrible person.
It completely empties the act of its special significance. The host in our source material points out that the very meaning of moral admiration implies that heroic acts are free gifts, not obligations. We admire them because the person didn't have to do it.
They chose to give something of themselves that they were fully entitled to keep: their safety, their organ, their money, their life.
Exactly. They went off script from the baseline of human duty. That is why we applaud. They gave a gift that wasn't owed.
So the argument is, if we make heroism mandatory, we actually destroy the concept of heroism itself.
We do. We just turned everyone into either a compliant worker,
Right.
just paying their moral taxes, or a moral failure. There's no room left for that beautiful, optional, admirable space.
Okay, so far, this all sounds pretty comforting, actually. I can stay out of the burning building, I can keep both my kidneys, I can keep my savings, and I'm still a decent guy. I'm not a villain, but,
And here comes the but. I was waiting for it.
of course, here's where it gets really, really interesting. Because just when you get comfortable with this idea that heroism is optional, supererogatory, the source throws this giant wrench in the gears. It's a scenario, a thought experiment called the shallow pond.
This is a classic in moral philosophy. It's a mousetrap for your intuitions. It's designed to make you feel uncomfortable.
It is absolutely designed to make you feel like a bad person if you don't act. So paint the picture for us. How does this one go?
Okay, so the scenario completely flips the script on cost and risk. Imagine you're walking to work again. But today is a special day. You're wearing a brand new, very expensive suit. Or maybe a wedding dress, something that cost you a lot of money and is very important to you.
So the personal stakes, for me, are high. I want to protect this thing I'm wearing.
Yes. And you're on your way to a career-defining meeting, or maybe even your own wedding. The timing is critical.
Okay, I'm with you.
As you walk through a park, you pass a shallow, decorative pond, and you see a small child face down in the water, drowning.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, the pond is very shallow, maybe knee-deep at most. There's absolutely no risk to your own life. You are not going to drown. You are a full-grown adult. The water is calm.
So the physical danger to me is zero. I am completely safe.
Correct. But if you wade in to save the child, you will 100% ruin your expensive clothes. Mud, water, slime. The suit is a total loss. And you will be soaking wet, dirty, and very late. You will absolutely miss that critical meeting. You might lose the promotion. You'll be late to your own wedding.
So the cost to me is financial and professional, or social, not physical.
Precisely. Now, the question is, are you obligated to save the child?
I mean, yes. Obviously, yes. 1000% yes. If I walk past a drowning kid because I'm worried about my new Italian loafers, or because I don't want to explain to my boss why I'm late and wet, I'm not just a regular person. I am a monster.
And that is the universal moral verdict, isn't it? Pretty much everyone agrees. You must help. If you walk away, you're doing something seriously, profoundly wrong.
It's not just not nice. It's reprehensible. If someone told me they did that they just walked by, I don't think I could ever speak to them again. I'd see them as fundamentally broken.
Exactly. But look at what just happened in our reasoning. You are making a sacrifice. You are losing money, the clothes. You are potentially losing professional standing the meeting. You are incurring a real cost. Yet we don't call this heroism. We call it duty.
It feels like duty. It feels like the bare minimum.
But why? What's the difference between this and the burning building?
Well, the cost to me is, it's small. It's trivial compared to the result. A suit versus a life. It's not even a question.
And that is the key. That's the implication that this thought experiment is designed to reveal. It shows that some actions that technically involve personal sacrifice are, in fact, obligatory. And it's because the cost to you is so small compared to the enormous harm you can prevent. A human life is at stake.
So we can't just have a simple rule that says any personal sacrifice equals heroism. It's not that clean. There's a sliding scale.
It's a spectrum.
Yeah.
And this is where the source material gets really useful, because it tries to map out this spectrum of risk and sacrifice to help us find the border between duty and heroism. Because clearly, the shallow pond is on one side.
Duty.
And clearly, jumping on a live grenade to save your squad is on the other.
Heroism.
So where in the middle does it change? Where's the border?
Let's walk through that spectrum.
Yeah.
What's at the absolute bottom, the clearest cut case?
At one end, we have the category of Low cost, high benefit. This is the obligatory zone. This is the shallow pond. It's calling an ambulance when you witness a car crash. It costs you 30 seconds and zero risk, and it can save a life.
Okay, that's clear. No argument there. That is our duty. What's at the absolute other end, the top of the scale?
At the far end is extreme risk. This is the almost certain death or dismemberment category. This is the grenade scenario. This is giving up your entire life project, your whole future, to provide 247 care for someone. This is the realm where almost everyone agrees this is heroism. We cannot demand this of people.
Right. It's admirable, but optional.
Yeah.
Supererogatory.
Exactly. But then we get to the middle, the murky part, the gray zones.
Moderate cost. This is where all the arguments happen, I assume.
This is it. This is entering a burning building where there is a decent chance of safety, but it is absolutely not guaranteed.
Or what about donating a significant portion of your income? Not enough to make you starve, but enough that you can't go on vacation, you can't buy a new car, you can't save for retirement.
That's a perfect example of the gray zone. Or donating bone marrow. It's painful, it's a medical procedure, but it's very unlikely to kill you.
This is the really tricky part. Because some people would look at that and say, hey, if you can save a family from a fire and you're, say, 90% sure you'll make it out okay, you absolutely should go.
While others would say, no way, even a 10% chance of dying is far too much to ask of any ordinary person. That's not a duty.
And that's the philosophical tension, right?
That's the whole debate. View A, one side of the argument, says that morality demands some level of risk and sacrifice from us, especially in urgent cases. They say that if you can save a life, you should be willing to risk a broken leg or some smoke inhalation.
Okay. And what does View B say?
View B holds a firmer line. It says you are never, ever required to seriously endanger your own life or long-term well-being, that our body and our life are fundamentally ours, and choosing to risk them is always a supererogatory act. It's always heroism, never duty.
So it seems like the takeaway from the source is that the line is fuzzy. It's not a hard black and white border that we can just point to on a map.
It is fuzzy for most of us.
Yeah.
But there is one area where the line gets a lot sharper, a lot clearer. And that's when we change who the person is standing on that sidewalk.
You mean when we bring in the professionals?
Exactly.
Yeah.
This brings us right to the next section in our outline. Professional duty versus ordinary duty.
Because, yeah, when I see a firefighter arrive at the scene, my expectation changes completely. If I see a firefighter standing on the curb next to me saying, wow, that looks really dangerous, I'm not just confused. I'm angry.
You feel betrayed in a way.
Yes, because my assumption is that's your job. You're supposed to go in.
Right. And the source highlights these specific professions. Firefighters, police officers, soldiers, lifeguards, rescue workers, even doctors in an emergency. Their moral calculus is different.
So how does the math change for them? Why is it different? What's the philosophical justification?
It all comes down to something called the voluntary commitment argument.
Voluntary commitment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, by choosing to take that job, by putting on that uniform, they have voluntarily agreed to accept certain risks that the general public has not. It's part of the contract, both literally and socially.
They're also trained for it and equipped for it.
Exactly. They're trained, they're equipped, and they're paid, often not nearly enough, but they're paid specifically to manage and confront risk on behalf of the rest of us.
So their moral baseline, it just shifts upwards.
Drastically. Actions that would be clearly heroic for a bystander, for an accountant or a teacher, become simple duty for a professional.
So for me, running into the fire is a supererogatory act. It's extra credit for the firefighter.
It's the job description. If a random accountant runs into a burning building to save a child, he's a hero. We give him a key to the city. If a firefighter on duty refuses to enter that same building under reasonable conditions, he isn't just not a hero. He is actively failing his duty.
He's blameworthy.
He is. He could be fired. He could be socially ostracized. Yeah. Because he made an implicit promise to society when he took that job. He said, I will take this risk so that you don't have to.
It's a social pact. We all agree that some people will carry that burden for the rest of us.
That's a perfect way to put it.
But surely there has to be a limit, right? I mean, we don't expect a firefighter to just walk into a chemical plant inferno that is clearly going to kill them in seconds. We don't ask them to commit suicide.
No, and that is a very important nuance that the expert analysis in the source provides. Even professional duty has its limits. No professional was required to perform a suicidal action with almost no chance of success.
So if the building is about to collapse and the fire chief yells, pull back, everyone out, and the firefighter follows that order?
They are doing their duty. They were preserving their team and themselves so they can fight the next fire, save the next person. That is a strategic and moral good.
And what if a firefighter disobeyed that order? What if they ran back in anyway to try and save one last person, knowing the roof was about to come down?
In that moment, that firefighter would be moving back into the realm of heroism, or perhaps recklessness, depending on the outcome. But it wouldn't be duty anymore. They would have gone beyond their obligation.
So heroism can become an obligation because of your role, but that obligation isn't infinite.
It's not a blank check on their life. Correct.
This makes me think about the psychological weight of all this. We've been talking about these big, dramatic life or death moments, burning buildings, drowning kids. They're rare, thankfully. But there's a smaller, quieter version of this that happens in our heads every single day. And the source touches on this in a way that I found really, really unsettling.
I think I know where you're going. You're talking about the problem of moral demandingness.
Moral demandingness. It sounds exhausting just saying the word.
It is the trap of the shallow pond argument, if you take it to its logical extreme.
Explain that. How do we get from it's your duty to save a drowning kid to my life is ruined by morality? That seems like a big leap.
Well, let's follow the logic. We all agreed that if you can save a life for a small cost, like the cost of an expensive suit, you absolutely must do it.
Yes, that seems unshakable.
Okay. Well, certain philosophers, most famously Peter Singer, have pointed out that in our modern globalized world, thanks to the internet and effective charities, we are effectively always standing right next to a shallow pond.
How so? I don't see any ponds.
Because right now, as you're sitting here, you could pick up your phone and donate, say, $50 to a charity that provides life-saving medicine or food to starving children in another country.
Okay, yes, I could.
And that $50 is roughly the cost of a nice dinner out, or a new video game, or maybe 10 fancy coffees.
Uh-oh. I see where this is going.
If the rule from the pond is you must sacrifice small luxuries to save human lives, then every single time you buy a non-essential item, every time you buy that fancy coffee, you are effectively choosing not to save a life. You are walking past the pond because you don't want to get your shoes wet.
Oh, man. That is a heavy, heavy thought. That's crippling.
It is the trap of maximum utility. If we accept the premise that you must always do whatever helps others the most, no matter the cost to your own projects, then morality becomes this infinite, all-consuming demand.
It would consume everything. I couldn't buy a book. I couldn't go on a date. I couldn't save for my kids' college education because every single dollar that I spend on myself could be saving a life somewhere else right now.
Exactly. You would live under a constant cloud of guilt. There'd be no room for personal projects, no room for joy, no room for you. You would just be a machine for generating utility for others.
And surely that's not sustainable for a human being. You just collapse.
The source argues that it isn't. It discusses the actual outcome of this kind of over-demandingness. It doesn't actually result in a world full of saints. It backfires.
What does it create instead?
Burnout, resentment, and, ironically, cynicism. If the bar for being a good person is set at be a perfect saint every second of every day, most people look at that bar and they just say, well, I can't possibly clear that. So I guess I'm a moral failure. I might as well stop trying altogether.
It's like a diet that says you can never, ever eat a single gram of sugar again for the rest of your life. You'll do it for 3 days, and then you'll just binge on a whole cake because the standard is impossible.
That's a great analogy. If morality becomes too strict, too demanding, people don't rise to the occasion. They rebel against it. They abandon the project.
So what's the solution? How do we balance the undeniable moral force of the shallow pond obligation with the very real human need to actually have a life?
The solution that the experts in the source material propose is the concept of establishing strong minimums.
Strong minimums. I like that. It sounds sturdy. It sounds achievable.
The idea is that morality should set a hard, clear, and enforceable floor. Do not harm others. Keep your most serious promises, and help when it is easy and the cost is genuinely low. These are the strong minimums. We must hold ourselves and others to these standards.
And what about all the rest? The extreme sacrifice, the donating every penny stuff?
The rest, the heroic sainthood, the extreme sacrifice, should be left as what it is. Admirable, but not mandatory. We should encourage it. We should praise it. We should celebrate it. But we must not demand it.
This is the philosophy that allows us to have a life, to pursue our own goals while still being fundamentally decent people. It stops the coffee guilt.
Exactly. It says you can enjoy your coffee, as long as you're still the kind of person who pulls the drowning kid out of the actual pond when you see him.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize all of this. We've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from burning buildings to wetsuits, from firefighter contracts to the ethics of buying coffee. Let's try to build a balanced view for the listener, a sort of user's guide to heroism and duty.
I love that. Let's break it down into a few key takeaways.
Okay, takeaway number one, the minimal duty of rescue.
This is the practical synthesis for the ordinary person. The rule is this. You must provide reasonable help in an emergency when it is relatively safe for you to do so and not excessively costly.
So if you see a car accident, you call 911. If you see someone choking in a restaurant, you try to help or get help.
Use the tools available to you. If there's a life preserver on the dock and someone is struggling in the water, you have a duty to throw it to them. Failing to do these things isn't just unfortunate, it is a genuine moral failure. You are blameworthy.
Okay, strong minimum. That's clear. Point two, heroism is a choice.
This is the crucial distinction that protects our sanity. You may choose to risk your life. You may choose to give up major life goods like your savings or a kidney or your career, but you are not morally required to do so.
So let's revisit our opening scenario one last time. I'm on the sidewalk, the building is burning, I hear the scream, I'm not a firefighter.
You are not required to rush into that building. It is not your duty. You are not a bad person for staying out. Your duty is to call the professionals, to scream for help, to clear the area. But you do not have to become a martyr.
That's a huge relief, honestly. But it also, paradoxically, makes me respect the people who do go in even more.
That is the final piece of the summary. That is the beauty of it. Heroism remains a gift. It is something extraordinary that certain people give to the world. It is not a tax that we all have to pay just to exist. It is a gift.
It really changes how you look at the news, doesn't it? When you see a story about someone doing something incredible and brave, you realize they aren't just doing their job as a human being.
No, they are going off script. They are stepping into that supererogatory space. They are rewriting the boundaries of what is possible, but they're not rewriting the definition of what is required.
So what does this all mean for us, the listeners driving to work or doing the dishes right now? What's the final takeaway?
I think it means we should take our strong minimums very seriously. We should ask ourselves, are we actually helping when it's easy? Are we ignoring the little shallow ponds in our own lives because of minor inconveniences?
That's the real kicker, isn't it? The shallow pond. It's very easy to use the "I'm not a hero" line as an excuse for simple laziness or selfishness. But if the cost is genuinely low, we have to act.
Exactly. The central challenge is not to use the "I'm not a hero" excuse to avoid doing our basic duty.
This has been a really fascinating journey through the ethics of bravery. I want to leave everyone with the final provocative thoughts from the source material. These are questions for you to just sort of mull over today.
They're great self-reflection questions,
Oh.
really powerful.
First one, where do you personally draw the line between your duty to help and heroism? And does that line move depending on who is in trouble? Is it different for a stranger versus your own family?
That's a huge one. Because I think for most of us, we would run into that burning building for our own child without a second thought. It wouldn't even feel like a choice. But for a stranger, that's where the real question lies.
Second question, have you ever judged yourself too harshly for not being a hero? Maybe you froze in a moment of crisis. Maybe you hesitated. This framework might help you forgive yourself.
It's so important to remember that freezing is a natural physiological reaction. It's not necessarily a moral failing. We're not all built to be heroes.
And the last one, which I think is maybe the most actionable and important for daily life. What kind of ordinary courage could you practice in your life? The kind that isn't spectacular, but is still morally important.
That's my favorite. Maybe it's speaking up against an inappropriate joke at work. Maybe it's helping a neighbor who you know is struggling. Even if it's inconvenient, it doesn't have to be a burning building to be an act of courage.
Precisely. It's the small acts that build the habit of duty so that maybe, just maybe, if that terrible day ever comes, you're a little more ready.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you feel a little more prepared for the next moral dilemma life decides to throw at you.
Stay safe out there and stay curious.
See you next time.